Welcome, listeners, to Indivisible Plymouth's podcast, The Participation Project, where curiosity and honest conversations help you stay informed, get involved, and participate in the decisions that affect our communities. I'm Priscilla Anderson, and I'm hosting today. And I'm really excited about our guest today, Andrea Dickinson. She is the president of Sustainable Plymouth, which is a 501c3 that is basically responsible for saving the planet, but especially Plymouth. So welcome, Andrea.
Thank you so much, Priscilla. I'm happy to be here. And thank you to the local scene for hosting us.
They are wonderful, and I'll give them another plug at the end, too. So I quickly went on your website, and one of the first things that jumped out at me on Sustainable Plymouth's website, which is sustainableplymouth.org, was you have a land acknowledgement. Can you explain what that is and how that came about?
Yes, of course. And I thought maybe we could start the podcast off with reading it, and then maybe I can explain it a little bit afterwards. But we do typically try to start our general meetings off with this land acknowledgement, especially when you're talking about natural resources in this community. I think it's important to acknowledge the history of the land. So
let's do it.
Okay, so we acknowledge that Sustainable Plymouth meets on the sacred land of the Wampanoag Nation. We honor the Herring Pond Wampanoag people who are the original stewards of this place now known as Plymouth. May we keep the first peoples of this land in our hearts and minds as we discuss issues affecting their ancestral homelands.
Amazing. I know you can explain it more, but I just love how it says on this land that we now call Plymouth, because it's not saying our town of Plymouth, our anything really. And it's an area rather than, it's kind of like harking back to when there were no town barriers, state barriers. There was just land. So please go ahead and talk a little bit about the Wampanoag custodial.
So Plymouth has so much history, and Plymouth is so proud of its history. I think, the original stewards, like the land acknowledgement says, were the native people. And I'm also a member of the Town of Plymouth's Open Space Committee. And I'm trying to remember if it was the Open Space Committee or Sustainable Plymouth first that adopted the land acknowledgement. But we did work with Melissa Ferretti, who's the chairperson of the Herring Pond Wampanoag, to develop the land acknowledgement to make sure that, it was something designed by them and something that they felt comfortable with.
Oh, nice.
And so the Open Space Committee was the first town committee to adopt it. And then after that, more and more town committees adopted it. But it was also important for Sustainable Plymouth. All the work we do is rooted in the original stewardship practices that were adopted by the native people. Like I said, history is so important in Plymouth, and a lot of people like to tout their own descendantry from the Mayflower, myself included. I am a descendant of,
as am I, but I've learned a lot.
Right.
And that's not like the end of the ancestral line for any of us.
Yes. So I think it's important to acknowledge both sides there. And
yeah, that's wonderful. And so you have worked with the Wampanoag tribes or throughout since you guys have been in existence?
We try to collaborate with them whenever we can. The land acknowledgement was definitely an important piece we needed their input on. We didn't want to put words in their mouth or come up with something we thought was well-intended and, not have it align with their needs or their feelings and things like that. I know that they are stretched pretty thin in terms of their leadership. They have their involvement in a lot of different areas, and it's hard because they don't have the bandwidth necessarily to participate in all the meetings and things like that. So we do try to collaborate when we can, but obviously there's a lot of room for more.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So I saw that you, as a group, Sustainable Plymouth, you guys are busy. It's almost overwhelming when I look at the website. We can't possibly cover all of it today. It's just amazing what you have done and what you have going on now and what you'll be doing in the future. I noticed that you guys worked with the town of Plymouth to declare a climate emergency. And what does that mean?
So back in 2021, this was still when Sustainable Plymouth was relatively new. We've been an organization since 2019, but it was more of a loose community group. And then it wasn't until a couple of years ago we became an actual 501c3. But back in 2021, we worked with an alliance of several different community groups to kind of lobby the town government to declare a climate emergency, basically to acknowledge climate change is real. This is a priority. Now, the declaration itself does not do much, but what happens is once the select board acknowledged that and did declare the climate emergency, that created the foundation for later us to make asks and say, well, this supports the declaration of the climate emergency. Like the
Okay.
select board declared this climate emergency, so we should do these other things.
Yeah.
And, there are a lot of aspects of environmental work that can feel really discouraging when you're looking at it from like a global or national lens.
Yeah.
But around 2021, there were a sequence of really positive changes that took place from town leadership standpoint that really gave us this feeling of like positive momentum. And one of them was the declaration of the climate emergency. And around that same time, the select board also moved forward with our request to create a climate action net zero committee.
Yes. What is that? I read about that.
And so that is a town committee that has, once it was established, they worked with a consulting company to implement a climate action and adaptation plan, which is doing like a full analysis of like the geographical challenges of the town. For example, what's in a flood zone, what's not, looking at like population growth, looking at like heat island effect in like urban parts of town where maybe there aren't a lot of trees and there's a lot
Mhm.
of asphalt, so the temperature is a lot higher.
Higher. Yeah.
Looking at like the dams in town, like the structural dams that may be like hundreds of years old that are a public safety challenge. So it was this like all-encompassing assessment that this great consulting company did, and it took a while to compile all this research. But now we do have this climate action and adaptation plan, which then allows the town to have a roadmap to say, okay, what are actions we can take? First off, like what's the low-hanging fruit, but also what can we work towards, and what's more of like a 5-year plan versus a 10-year plan? What do we need grants for? What can we do now? What are community groups doing? So it really helps take climate action from this like theoretical place to actually
Yeah.
like action oriented. And then the other thing besides the climate action net zero committee, which is called CANS for short,
Okay.
also we were able to get approved a new position for the town, which is
Yeah. I was going to ask you about
a
that. Yep.
sustainability planner.
So a full-time position
Yes.
within town government.
Yes. Yeah. So a
Amazing.
climate resilience sustainability planner. And that position is now held by Mike Cahill. And he was employed by Department of Energy and Environment before. He was more of like a natural resources specialist working with some of it's like hunting enforcement, fisheries enforcement, helping manage conservation land and trails and things like that. But he transitioned into this climate resilience sustainability planner role, which is really awesome for him because while he's still a young person, he also held a professor role at Endicott College,
Wow.
teaching. I think it was like environmental economics. So he has like a really good perspective on a lot of these issues where, it's not just coming in with these like fun, cool ideas, but it's also grounding everything in like the financial feasibility, the payback, what's good for local business, what like the town budget can support. And he's been really excellent for the town.
Wow, that's amazing. Like it's not just let's go and do beach cleanups. What you guys are and what you do. You've really taken it to multiple deeper levels than that. And I'm just so impressed. Also grateful. Thank you for what you're doing. So I know you guys have also had some other things that you need kudos for. I understand that you helped Plymouth to be one of the first towns to ban single-use plastic bags in
Yes,
2016.
I believe we were one of the first in the South
South
Shore, one of the
Shore.
first in Massachusetts. This was actually pre my moving to Plymouth, but
Oh,
Ken Stone, who was the president of Sustainable Plymouth before me, and when I became president, he was the vice president under me. So I work very closely with Ken. He has since retired from the board of Sustainable Plymouth and is now serving as the chair of the town's recycling committee. But he has done so much for this town. And that was one of the things when I first moved here. I was like, that's awesome. They've already banned plastic bags.
yeah.
And so, yeah, in 2016, we successfully banned plastic bags. And that did have to go through town meeting. So it was a vote of majority of town meeting members. And there was a little bit of a hiccup about 2 years ago where some of like the big box stores in town started using like really thick plastic
Oh,
bags
I
and
remember
saying,
that.
oh,
Yeah.
these are reusable.
Yep.
And
Yep.
it was like, ah, geez, they found a loophole basically saying, well, if we make them thick enough, then they count as reusable. But in reality, a really, really thick plastic bag, most people are throwing it away and it's just probably a
Yeah.
100 times worse.
So, yeah, it's worse.
So
Yeah.
then we ended up, Sustainable Plymouth worked with the Open Space Committee to take it back to town meeting to tighten that up and close that loophole, basically changing the definition of what a reusable bag is so that
Yep.
they couldn't
Yeah.
get away with that.
Nice. And do you have any idea how many plastic bags you have saved from being in our landfill?
I don't have that number off the top of my head. I'm sure it's a lot. And I will say that one of the things that it's really important is protecting the small businesses, because sometimes some of these initiatives can come up and we hate for them to be like cost prohibitive or a burden to some of the small businesses. And as part of the bylaw, it exempts businesses that are under like a certain square footage or something like that.
Really?
And so basically, the goal is to go after like the big box stores, the
Yeah.
companies that can afford it, and
Yeah.
and kind of like they can
Corporations,
be the
Walmart.
front of the change and things like that. And so some of the changes like this, they provide some protections for some of the small businesses. Like, for example, January 1st, 2026, the town banned polystyrene for foodware, which is
Takeout containers.
styrofoam.
Yeah.
And I know that, so this went through the Board of Health, which was really great. And we so appreciate the Board of Health for putting this through, because that meant we didn't have to go and advocate to town meeting.
Okay.
Board of Health could just make this a policy and put
By
that
way
through.
of saying it's not healthy when they break
Right.
down for us.
Yep,
Or
exactly.
when we eat out of them, or
Yeah.
when we heat them up in the microwave.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when they implemented this, they gave it like a year lead time so that businesses had a year's notice, but
To
still,
transition.
I'm sure there were businesses that might not have known. And so they've been very flexible with allowing extensions for businesses that are still trying to work through it, work through the change, or have issues with supply chain. And so it's really not at all about trying to penalize businesses,
Yeah.
especially small businesses, because they are so essential to our community.
Yeah.
And so that is just something
Yeah. So
important
you're
to
not
note.
coming in as the environment police
Right.
and saying you can't do that, you can't do that. I'm thinking like of Dunkin' Donuts with their giant styrofoam
hmm
cups for their coffee. Are they still using those?
I believe Dunkin' Donuts has phased out because they would get penalized
Yeah.
in Plymouth.
Because they're a big corporation.
I don't personally go to Dunkin' Donuts, but now I kind of want to go and
And
check.
see, yeah, honestly, I can't remember, and I don't go there either very often.
But I haven't been seeing them littered anymore, because
Yeah.
we do help the town organize a townwide cleanup, which takes place twice a year. And it was interesting, like certain areas you would clean up, you're like, okay, there's either like the same person going by here littering the same thing.
Yeah.
Like I remember finding a lot of Dunkin' Donuts cups before. It's similar with plastic bags, actually.
Yeah.
It's interesting, like the patterns you see. But yeah, I
Mhm.
haven't been seeing the styrofoam from Dunkin' Donuts.
That is a good thing. That's a good thing. What about the plastic silverware?
So there aren't any conversations about banning that. I think it's also important to Sustainable Plymouth and to like the Open Space Committee, the Recycling Committee. Like none of us want to be known as a group that's just full of bans. Like, oh, that's the
Yes.
committee of the
Yes.
bans, or
Yes.
they're just coming in and just saying like ban everything. Like we don't want that. And I think there's certain industries where like disposable cutlery, for example, is like hard to avoid. There are some businesses that are just inherently takeout. And there are more environmentally responsible alternatives, but a lot of times they can be cost prohibitive. And so, we're not trying to like shove a square into a round hole. If the industry's not ready for it, if the town's not ready for it, we don't want to like force something.
Which
Like,
also works in our favor in terms of the people who live here
mhm.
for the environment. If you put up a lot of prohibitive rules and things like that, and everyone's going to get all upset about, they're not going to want to comply, they're not going to buy into why this is happening. So, in the long run, it sounds like you guys help phase the bad things out.
Yeah, we definitely don't want to ask for too much too soon. And we do try to work as collaboratively as we can with local businesses. Like I said, local businesses are just like the backbone of the community.
Yeah,
And we really
absolutely.
want to be a resource as much as we can for the local businesses. And like if they have questions, perhaps like provide resources. Like we have done some outreach with coffee shops.
Mhm.
We started a Bring Your Own Cup campaign that launched in April, and it was fully voluntary. And we're not asking them to provide discounts or anything because I know there are really narrow margins for coffee. There are all sorts of like import taxes and things like that.
Especially for a small coffee shop.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we're not trying to create anything that's cost prohibitive, but we want to encourage customers who are environmentally conscious to go to these coffee shops that are happy and willing to accept people's reusable cups. And so we've tried to help provide like free marketing materials and things to help them communicate
Oh.
that. And then we promote the coffee shops. So we really want to be a resource and like a collaborator with those businesses rather than like a thorn in their sides.
Yeah, that's great. How does Sustainable Plymouth get funding to do that?
So, Sustainable Plymouth is all volunteer. So, we do have a 5-person board, all volunteer, but every board member is a huge asset and it's a lot of volunteer hours. The budget we have is very minimal and it's all based on donations.
Mhm.
The donations themselves are also fully voluntary. Like, we do have a membership form people can fill out, but even that, we don't want it to be cost prohibitive. So, if
Yeah.
someone wants to be a member and say they're a student or if they're low income or just don't have the funds at the time, like when you're filling out the form, you can choose to donate your time or volunteer in lieu of making a donation.
Mhm.
And the donation, even if they want to donate $5 or more, they can donate whatever they want. If
Yeah.
they don't have the funds, they don't need to. No questions asked.
So the more important thing is the cultural change rather than getting every single person to give money.
Oh, exactly. Yes. And we try to have most of our initiatives be like very low cost. I mean, really the biggest cost is like print materials sometimes. Like we
Yep.
do a lot of like the graphic stuff and creating the resources just ourselves, just on a
Yes.
volunteer basis. And we're lucky enough that some of the people who volunteer with us do have an immense amount of knowledge and skills. Like one of the members of our water quality group, he's a professional wetland scientist
Wow.
and he has like over 30 years of experience. He's worked with the EPA, he's worked all over the country, and he held a wetland delineation training for us for free 2 weeks ago, which was just like a huge asset. And we have multiple hydrogeologists that are part of our water quality group. Not that everybody needs to come with this like professional experience because there are plenty of people who come with no skills and just an interest. And
Yeah.
that's just as important, if not, dare I say, more, because the hardest part I've found is really just finding the people who are willing to show up to help shepherd projects along. The matter of like finding subject matter experts, we can find experts. Luckily, we have really great people in our community, but getting the people who are willing to show up each time and help do some of the work, whether it's like hanging up flyers or taking meeting minutes or anything like that, that's surprisingly like a very valuable skill.
Yeah. Mhm. It sure is. So most of the work you guys do is local, but I was reading that you do participate in some state and federal and international initiatives.
So that's funny you mentioned international because at first I was going to say, well, no, we don't do that. But then I remembered. So it's funny and really cool. This not this past summer. Was it the summer before? No, it was in the fall. This was the second time the State Department had reached out to us through World Boston. And I think they were going on a field trip with this group of delegates from all over the world, from Boston to Woods Hole, and Plymouth was like in between.
Yeah.
And so they reached out to see if we could pull a group of people together to facilitate a discussion because both times this group of international delegates was interested in like how grassroots community work is done here in the United States. And so we
Really?
we pulled together some people from town government, people from the community, people from different organizations throughout town, and held these like fascinating discussions. The first one we did was it was an Indo-Pacific delegation on marine debris and plastic waste. And then I'm trying to remember what
Wow.
the last one was on. But the last one I think it was on recycling, which it was fascinating first off what we could learn from these people in other countries because
Yeah.
you like to think the US is a leader and then you learn sometimes that some of these other countries are miles ahead.
Ahead. What's an example of something that you learned that another country is doing better than us, say?
There was this person from India and he was talking about a community in India that is fully closed loop. Like they grow all the food. They like compost all the waste. They produce. It almost sounded a little bit like a commune.
Yeah, that's
but
what I
like,
was just gonna say.
but I think like larger scale than that and less culty. I don't
Yeah.
know.
That's great.
But then there was another person. I think she was from Singapore, maybe, and she was talking about how they get these massive grants from the US government to develop these state-of-the-art recycling facilities. Meanwhile, the recycling here is really leaving a lot to be desired.
Sure.
And so it was just like, wow, we're like over here yearning for the recycling facilities you have,
Yeah.
but it's our government funding
Funding it.
and it's probably because a lot of our recycling is often shipped to other countries.
Mm-hmm.
But so it was just interesting hearing some of their examples of like what works for them and what are some of the challenges in their countries. And then one of the things that was funny was we were talking to them about the transfer station in Plymouth.
Yeah.
And they were so fascinated by the pay to throw program where you have to buy the trash bags here.
Okay.
And so it's like those orange trash bags.
Yes.
And so someone had a roll of the trash bags, and these people from all over the country were like, "Can you hand me that bag?" And they were like inspecting this bag because apparently those bags are designed in a way that if it's overloaded, they'll burst at the bottom.
I did not
And
know
I didn't
that.
know that either.
To make sure they don't get overloaded or weighed down
Right.
too much.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the rationale behind that pay to throw program is that if you have to pay more to throw out your trash, it's more incentive to recycle because you don't have to pay if you're going to the transfer station.
Yeah.
You don't
Okay.
have to pay to get rid of the recycling. So say you have a big party and you have like 10 bags full of beer cans or something.
Yeah.
You could recycle that all for free rather than use your whole roll of bags that
bags.
cost like $6 or something like that.
Yes.
But only about 10% of the community even uses the transfer station. So
Yeah.
everyone else is using the various curbside trash services.
Yes. Yes. Oh, this is so fun. You guys you guys are just, you have your hands and committees into so much.
It is tough because I think when you're concerned about environmental work, environmental issues, there are so many different aspects. And as one person or one organization, you can't do everything. You can't be involved in everything. You can't be an expert in everything. You can't be the leading contact for everything. And Plymouth is really fortunate where we do have quite a number of environmental groups. And actually on our website, there's a tab at the menu, on the top menu, it says like local environmental organizations, and it opens a Google spreadsheet, and we list there all of the different town committees and the various environmental groups, because depending on like what part of town you're living in or what your specific interest is,
Yeah.
it may be that you want like a more narrow and specific focus.
Yeah.
Like for example, if you're coming at it from like a church or something like that, like the Unitarian Universalist Church has a really awesome social action committee that does a lot of environmental work. If you're really interested in state or federal lobbying, there's the Climate Action Citizens Climate Lobby of Southeastern Massachusetts, which is based in Plymouth. There's the Southeastern Massachusetts Pine Barrens Alliance, which does really great work in the Pine Barrens ecosystem. There's the Herring Pond Watershed Association. So there are a lot of these groups that have like more niche focuses.
Yeah, we're having I'm sorry to interrupt you. We're going to have eventually on this podcast Krill Carson, who founded NECWA, New England Coastal Wildlife Alliance. She does a lot with the ocean sunfish and the turtles.
Oh wow, that's great.
Yeah, it's
I'll
really
have to
neat.
tune into that episode for sure. That sounds fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she's amazing.
What I was going to say is when Sustainable Plymouth was formed, we didn't want to like recreate the wheel in any way.
Yeah.
But it was more this goal of creating like an overarching umbrella that says like, okay, like can we help promote these organizations among each other? Sometimes things can get siloed and there's not always conversation between the different groups because there's so much going on. People are really busy. Sometimes it's like noses down working on your specific mission.
Yeah.
And so it's really great to be able to point people to these organizations if there's a particular issue that arises and it's like, oh, this person would be great to connect with this organization, or if we want to ask someone to come to us and speak.
Wetlands is way different than a recycling focus. Like there's so many different areas within your mission that people could get involved in.
And then the other thing that Sustainable Plymouth does that's a little bit unique to us is we collaborate with the town of Plymouth a lot.
I saw that. Yeah.
So we work very closely with like the Department of Energy and Environment, with DPW. We work with the Plymouth Public Schools. We work with the library. A lot of the work that we do is like education focused and education for all levels. Like we have a monthly program for 4 to 8 year olds. That's a sustainability enrichment program. It's called Patterns in Nature.
Do they come together, the kids, like the library?
Yes. So we host this at the library every month. And it started off as more of like a story time with activity. And each of the books would be about some different aspect of like environmental topic that was like age appropriate for like 4 to 8 year olds. And so it's morphed a little bit where it's still a story, but it's more focused on this enrichment activity. For example, I think it was for July, there was a book about pollinators, about bees and flowers. And then we had a beekeeper come in who had a demonstration hive, which I had no idea that this even existed, but it's kind of like a carry-on suitcase that has like glass or plastic walls. And you can see the bees like creating their little hive.
Oh, I've seen something like that at like the Marshfield Fair.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
And so it was really great for the kids to be able to learn a little bit in the story and then be able to engage and interact with this demonstration hive. And then the session before that, they were actually out in the garden planting flowers.
Oh, that's
Sometimes they'll like create their own little like bird feeder, or we had someone from Manomet Conservation Sciences come and talk about migratory birds and bird nests.
Amazing.
And it's almost just as much for the parents too, because it's like a fun activity.
Of course it is. Yeah.
It's a fun activity for the kids and hopefully they learn something, but then also the parents, are hopefully learning something too.
Of course. Of course. What do you suggest that someone who has an interest in doing more, but they are overwhelmed, like where do they start? What can I do at home right now? Like if straws show up in my house, I try to at least cut them down the middle, so maybe they'd be safer. I'm not the one that usually brings them in. It's my adult kids, but besides using reusable things like utensils and plates, and like this is something that Krill does, Krill Carson, with neck wash. She's been doing it. I've known her for like 30 years, and she's been doing this for that long. When she goes to a family cookout or something, she brings in her bag, she's got 3 different plates and sets of silverware and cups. And I remember just the first time I saw her do that, I was just so impressed. And I was thinking, oh, how do you have the bandwidth to do that and then bring them home and wash them? And, doing things themselves can be overwhelming, but also the possibility of what needs to be done, what can be done is also overwhelming.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I would say first off, like nobody is perfect. And like striving for perfection or punishing yourself when you're like, oh no, I forgot to bring my bags, or I forgot to bring my own cup, or I never bring my own cup. We do what we can. We do the best we can, and doing something is better than nothing in any way that you can. I'm not perfect by any means. And, we try not to be like elitist isn't the right word, but like it's not like this club where you have to like do everything right to be part of it.
Yeah, that's a good way of saying.
And so I think in terms of like a first step, I mean, when it comes to your own personal choices, I think, avoiding buying new things.
Yep.
I think that whenever it's possible to avoid buying new or to support secondhand.
Yeah.
For example, one of our board members, she owns House Cat Vintage and Consignment, which is at 1 Main Street. It used to be called Sprezzatura. And they have really funky, cool, like vintage and consignment things, which I actually just got this shirt there yesterday, which this is so cute.
That is adorable. And just for our listeners, it's just got pictures of palm trees and sea stars and flowers and shells. It's really cute.
Like finding something really cool secondhand is like, it feels like such a fun win. And then, to know it's like more unique. That's really great.
Yeah, so thrifting is cool. Do you hear that, my adult children?
Maybe your adult children need to go to House Cat Vintage and Consignment, because I feel like not all thrift stores are created equal.
True.
But it's also like maybe a fun game of like digging around and hunting sometimes, because
totally
it maybe even if you go to the like a Savers or something like that, like some people you find really good stuff.
Oh my God, are you kidding me? And actually, I shouldn't even put my kids down, because they actually do. Especially my youngest, she'll go thrifting. But yeah, the whole activity of going to Savers or consignment shop it's not necessarily even what you buy, but just going for the hunt.
Hmm.
It's the hunt.
Yeah, and I think just anytime you can avoid supporting, like, fast fashion
Yep.
or I mean, I'm guilty of it too, but, like, shopping on Amazon or something for something just because it's so convenient. Again, nobody is perfect, but
Yep.
just trying when you can to make those choices.
Yeah.
But again, I think, making those personal choices is one thing, but from my perspective, becoming part of a community has been really, really helpful because, like I said at the beginning, like when you think about environmental issues, climate issues nationally or globally, it can feel really hopeless.
It does.
And I think hopeless and overwhelming. And I think to kind of get past that, being part of a community, finding like your niche in the community, it helps you feel less alone. It makes you feel like your impacts matter more when you can be part of something bigger.
100%. I actually joined Indivisible Plymouth because I was really feeling overwhelmed and hopeless about just the state that our world is in and especially our country. So joining and finding other people that were kind of like-minded,
Exactly.
and now anything that I'm doing makes me feel like I'm actually doing something. So even though the situation hasn't necessarily changed, but I don't feel that heavy cloud weighing
Mhm.
me down as much.
Yeah, and being part of a community, it's kind of like when anybody in the group has an idea, it's like, "Oh, wow, well, that's a great idea." And now it's not just one person doing it, but it's a group behind it, and then you can actually see progress. Like when I first got involved in Sustainable Plymouth, I was like, "I'm no expert. What can I do?" And
Yeah,
then
but can you just tell me what I read this, but I didn't write it down. Your bachelor's degree is in what?
well, okay, so I went to UMass Amherst in my undergraduate degree. I have a bachelor's in natural resource and environmental economics,
Mhm.
and then I have a master's in sustainable enterprise.
Okay, that makes you a teeny bit of
Okay.
an expert, okay?
Okay, but I've never worked in the environmental field, professionally.
Professionally.
So it was my passion, and I really wanted to work in that area. And I kind of ended up in this career where I'm using my economics degree and my MBA, and I'm doing business analytics stuff, but not in the environmental field.
Gotta pay the bills.
Yeah. And what I do like is that it does allow me the flexibility and the freedom to do this work in my I say free time, which it doesn't really feel like I have like a whole lot of free time,
Doesn't look like
but
you do
it
either.
this is something that's really enjoyable for me and rewarding. And when I came to Plymouth and started getting involved more and more over time in the environmental community, it really made a huge difference for me because I mentioned I went to UMass Amherst for my undergrad. I did grow up in this area generally. I grew up on the Cape. After college, I moved to California for my master's and I lived in the San Francisco area for a while, which is like its own little like environmentalist bubble. So
Interesting.
when I was living in San Francisco, I mean, plastic bags had been banned there for like, I don't know, like
Oh,
over
so
10 years.
they're really ahead of the
They're just like so ahead of the game. And then I ended up meeting my husband, who's from Plymouth. I moved to Plymouth from San Francisco, and it almost felt a little bit like whiplash in terms of like environmentalism
uh,
because here it was like people love their plastic bags. They didn't want the ban
mm,
and it felt like just going back in time in a certain
yeah.
way. And it was over the next couple years that I started learning more about the different environmental groups in town. And actually my first toe into the water of the environmental community, I noticed a lot of trash on the sides of the roads. And I ended up going to town hall for like the first time ever. And I was like, hey, knock, knock. Can we do a trash cleanup? And I ended up meeting Patrick Farah, who's the town's conservation agent with the planning department. And he was like, actually, we have a group of ladies that meet once a month and they plan like a twice a year cleanup. And so I was like, okay. At this time, I was working
Yes.
in Hyannis. I was like, okay, I'm going to take a half day every time they meet and I'm going to drive all the way to Plymouth. And,
Yeah.
and so I've been helping plan the biannual townwide cleanup now since 2018.
Which probably makes you feel a lot more empowered than you just walking along the street
Oh,
yourself
for
and
sure.
picking stuff
The
up.
past cleanup, we picked up over 4,000 pounds of litter,
No way.
and
That's 2 tons.
it's a lot.
Yeah.
And I think once I got involved, a lot of the older ladies, they were like, "Okay, we can retire now because you'll take it over." And I
Yep.
was like, "Oh, geez." So now Sustainable Plymouth has been helping run it for the past couple years. But that was my first foray into the environmental field of the community because I got involved with this group of ladies as part of, it was called the Network of Open Space Friends, which doesn't exist anymore. And through them, I got connected with the Town of Plymouth's Open Space Committee, which does land conservation efforts. They review kind of like foreclosed land that's on the tax rolls to assess
Okay.
what would be good for putting into conservation.
Oh,
And we
yeah.
advocate for town meeting to move it into conservation.
Ah.
So I've been involved in the Open Space Committee since around 2018 as well. But that was really how I first got involved. And then I met a lot of people. I mean, at the time, especially, it was mostly like older people, like retirees. But I was like, these are my people.
Yeah.
Like,
I know what you
my
mean.
best pals are now like in their 70s, and you know,
I
it's
love it.
changed a bit because I feel like we've gotten a lot more younger people involved, and hopefully that continues.
Yeah.
But it really, just finding that community has been a game changer in terms of like feeling more hopeful and seeing progress and seeing change.
Oh, absolutely. You were talking about like not buying as many new things if you can help it. And Sustainable Plymouth has taken on something to help with that situation in terms of a fix it clinic.
Oh, yes.
Tell me about that.
Well, so the Fix It Clinic, we did our first Fix It Clinic in April, and we're
Of
doing
this
our
year.
yes,
Oh,
and we're
wow.
doing our next one in October, and we're lucky enough that
I'm sorry, the October what?
it is October 17th,
Wow.
and it's at the Plymouth Public Library.
Okay.
But we did our first one in April, and we had about 30 volunteers, and these people, you know, they are just so generous with their time. These people from the community, some of them, they're just like hobbyists, but they're people who are like, oh, I fix watches, I fix clocks, I fix jewelry, I can fix musical instruments and music boxes and
Wow.
furniture, laptops, phones. We had a lady that was doing plant triage. Like, you have a house plant that keeps dying, bring it
Yeah.
in and they'll help you fix it.
Really?
I brought my flute from middle school, and
Yeah.
someone fixed this flute up.
No
There was
way.
this music box that looked like a tiny grand piano that was somehow also a cigarette lighter. And this lady brought it in. This lady who was probably 90. She was like, this was like my mom's or my grandmother's, this like heirloom.
Yeah.
And they were able to fix that. She was like, I haven't heard this play music since I was a kid.
Oh, what a gift
And
for her.
so we had about 100 people come through. And I mean, obviously not everything can be fixed because we live, unfortunately, in a very disposable world these days.
Yeah.
But it's a great way to give your items a second life if possible, and also to learn a little something about how to fix, because part of the goal is that the volunteer fixers can help show we call them like a customer, but
Yeah.
they're not paying anything.
Yeah.
So
That's amazing too, that they're not paying anything.
Right.
Wow.
And so they can like learn a little something about how to fix their item too. Oh, we also had people there mending. So if it was like torn clothing or something, we had all sorts of people with sewing machines.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a really, really great event and really positive feedback. And even after the first event, the volunteer fixers were like, when can we do this again?
They loved it.
They loved it. Very popular was lamp repair, like rewiring lamps. A lot of demand for that.
Really?
And that is one of the things that like costs the most money. But even through that process, I mean, it only really cost us like a couple $100 just because
Wow.
we had Papa's, the pizza place downtown. They donated lunch for the volunteers.
Oh, how
The
nice.
library, obviously, they're providing the space. They were a great collaborator.
Yeah.
DPW provided some funds.
Wow.
The hardware store in Manomet donated, I think, like all of the lamp supplies or almost all the lamp
No
supplies.
way. And so the next one is October 17th at the library.
Yes.
Just because I think people are going to want to go. Is it rain or shine?
Yes, because it's inside.
Oh, it's inside.
Yep. Yeah, it's
I
in the
figured it was gonna be
Phalo
lawn.
room. It's like the
That
big
huge room.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And the signups aren't available yet, but they will be posted on our website. So if people are interested, they can just go to sustainableplymouth.org, and we'll have the link on there.
Now, do they have to sign up to go to it, to attend?
So signing up for an appointment is encouraged because that helps us understand the demand for the different groups. So basically what the sign-up sheet looks like is I have a broken lamp. So I go to the sign-up sheet and say, okay, I want to come at like 1 p.m. for my broken lamp. So my name is on there. I'm locked in. Now, walk-ins are fine.
Yeah.
It's just we can only take walk-ins
If there's time
if there's time.
after you do the people that signed up.
So
And
yeah, we had maybe about like 40 walk-ins last time, and we were able to see all of them.
wow.
But definitely signing up for an appointment is the best approach.
Yeah, if you really want to get something fixed.
And you brought this up because you were talking about avoiding buying new, and I
Yes.
just want to mention that so Ken Stone, who I had mentioned, used to be the president of Sustainable Plymouth before me. He has since retired from his time on the board, and he's now the chair of the recycling committee for the town. Now, the first thing the recycling committee did, they've only been in existence now for about a year and like 4 months,
Oh, wow.
which I guess long ago Plymouth had a recycling committee and it went defunct. So it has
Fizzled.
been reformed under Ken's leadership. And the
Been
first,
recycled.
yes.
Sorry.
And the first thing they did was to start a swap shop.
Yes, I was going to ask you about
Yes,
this.
and the recycling committee, they were formed in like the spring of last year, and already by like late summer, early fall of last year, they had the swap shop up and running.
Yeah.
So
Where is it? What does it do?
so the swap shop is an opportunity for people to bring in their items, like kind of like if you were to have a yard sale.
Mm-hmm.
But say I'm cleaning out my house and I have items that are
China that you don't
yes,
use
yes,
anymore.
or like old tools, old toys, lawn furniture,
Mm-hmm.
paintings, artwork, decor, coffee makers. There's a lot of coffee makers, salt
Oh, wow.
shakers. I got some really fun salt shakers. Someone like brought their whole collection in.
Oh, nice. Wow.
And so people can come in. It's open every Saturday from 9 a.m. to noon until the end of October. It's mostly outside, so it is seasonal.
Okay. What about if it's raining
So usually the town will post online.
on the website?
If it's just like sprinkling, it's probably fine.
Yeah.
They haven't had to cancel many of them because of rain, but
What about things like that are upholstered, like pillows or stuffed animals, things like that?
so since most of it is outside, I don't believe they accept upholstered items. So on the Sustainable Plymouth website, we do have a link for the swap shop. So at the
Okay.
top of our menu, I think it's under like more or get involved or something like that. There's a link for the swap shop, and there's a whole Google sheet for what is and isn't accepted.
Oh, great. Okay.
And what I was just trying to look up is the address because I always forget this, and it's 33 Hedges Pond Road. So it's in Cedarville.
Okay. Is that at the transfer station?
It's not at the transfer station, but it's near the transfer
Oh,
station.
okay. Well, I'm glad I didn't go to the transfer station.
Yes,
Get all
don't go to the
disappointed.
transfer station.
Oh yeah, I haven't been yet, and I'm excited. Now, do you have to donate something in order
No.
to take something?
No.
No. Okay, that's great. I mean, this is just going to be like a free treasure hunt.
Yes, I know. It's there's so many exciting things happening. Sustainable Plymouth also hosted a townwide yard sale this past, I'm trying to think if it was like midsummer. I can't remember what month it was. But we had about like 50 households participating, and we did this
Wow.
interactive Google map. And the swap shop was one of the places listed. Some people like to go on their little like yard sale treasure hunts.
Yes.
And
or
so
or thrifting route.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And so it was really cool to
Oh,
have.
wait a minute. I thought when you said townwide yard sale, I thought you meant people brought all their
No,
stuff.
so this was like all over town.
This was like a bar crawl.
Yes.
Only it was a yard sale crawl.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, wow.
And then we had a lot of really positive feedback from that too. So I'm hoping we'll do that again maybe next spring, summer.
Oh, that's amazing. Just briefly, I know we don't have much time, but what can you tell me about the situation with the cyanobacteria and or algal blooms right now? My daughter's always trying to find a safe place to bring the dog, but a lot of places are. And do they test every single pond in Plymouth?
So great question. And this is not an area that I'm an expert on. Our water quality group, as I mentioned, does have multiple hydrogeologists, and what they're working on doing is building what they're calling a Plymouth Ponds network, because Plymouth actually has over 400
Oh
ponds.
my God, I knew it was a lot.
It's a
I
lot.
didn't know it
And
was that
so
many.
the town does not have the bandwidth to be testing all of these ponds.
Mhm.
To answer your first question, no, they do not test them all. They do provide notices on their website, and you can subscribe to them as well for notices on like updates for some of the closures. The cyanobacteria and algal blooms, it is an increasing issue because of, more and more development close to waterways, more people potentially developing their land in terms of like lawn use and fertilizers and having septic tanks. So those are all factors that can
Huh.
result in the increased load within the ponds that results in the cyanobacteria and algal blooms. And so we have been trying to do some education around this topic. And one of the resources that I brought here today, and we also have linked on our website, it's called Your Yard Has an Important Role in Sustaining Plymouth. And it talks about some of like the simple choices you can make for your own property, no matter how large.
I
And
was going to ask you that question, but we won't have time, so I'm glad
yeah, it's
that
on our
you brought
website,
this.
but it includes things like avoiding using chemicals, managing your stormwater, planting natives and things like that, rethinking the size of your lawn, because those factors do, as a whole, like impact the water quality.
Hmm.
But in terms of monitoring, the town does have resources on this, and our ponds group is trying to connect a lot of the existing watershed groups and things like that. We actually, Hampton Watkins helps lead some of our water quality testing just as an organization through the Southeastern Massachusetts Pine Barrens Alliance lab. And so we are
Wow.
trying to help supplement the testing that the town does.
Okay.
But there's definitely room for improvement there.
Yeah, no, but that's really encouraging to know that they're trying to like kind of bring it all together. I'm thinking about trying to switch over my yard from grass to something else. Do you have any suggestions?
You know, it depends what you want to use the space for. We actually just started piloting this free program where we'll actually come and do a visit to your property if you want.
No
And we
way.
have a master gardener who has expertise in like pollinators and natives where we can help give advice for transitioning all sorts of things in your property. But if it's just a lawn, what I did in my yard where there were some bald spots, I planted clover,
Yeah.
and some types of clover are not native, but the greatest part of clover is it stays green, it stays short. You don't need to water it and you don't need to mow it nearly as often.
Mm-hmm.
And certain types of clover also have a flower, and then the pollinators love that.
And is it drought resistant too?
Much more drought resistant than
Okay, than
grass.
grass. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, my yard's pretty much transitioning itself
There you go. Yeah.
to
And
some.
I also turned a big portion of our lawn into a wildflower meadow, which, like, if we had kids and we were looking to have like a
Yeah.
wiffle ball game or something, it would be a different use of the
Right.
space.
Right.
So it's not like all lawn, get rid of it all. You know,
No.
people, it
Yeah.
depends what you want to use the space for.
Yeah.
We don't use the space for that. So we turned a big portion of it into a wildflower meadow. And now it's just like beautiful to look at and walk around and see
Yeah.
what's blooming. So
Right. Oh, that sounds fun. So if people want to learn more about any of this stuff, they would go to sustainableplymouth.org.
yes. And if you want to follow us on Instagram or Facebook, you can follow us at Sustainable Plymouth. We're very active on Instagram and Facebook. We also have a newsletter you can sign up for. Our prior newsletters are also cataloged on our website, but it's pretty easy to sign up, and we only have like one or two emails a month, so we try not to bombard people.
Yeah.
And so Sustainable Plymouth has 4 working groups. So if people find their interests fall into any of these 4 categories, we do have working groups that meet approximately once a month. The meetings are on Zoom after work hours for people who maybe have day jobs and aren't lucky to be retired yet.
Yeah.
But so the working groups, one is education, and whether it's little kids or adult education, that group works with the schools, the libraries, but we also do like bar trivia and fun things for adults.
Oh my God.
Uh,
That sounds so fun. I can't believe all the stuff you guys do.
We also have a group focused on plastic and waste reduction. That's the group that does like the Bring Your Own Cup campaign, and we work closely with the recycling committee. We have an open space native plants and pollinator pathways working group, which
And by pathways,
so a pollinator pathway is basically the idea that like if I create a tiny pollinator garden and you create a tiny pollinator garden and my neighbor creates one, then it provides these pollinators with an avenue to migrate throughout town so that they're not isolated to some tiny little like
where they have to fly a great distance for
yes,
one little
right.
spot and then fly back.
So it's this idea of like creating a pathway across Plymouth, which actually there's this website called Pollinator Pathways, I think it's .org, and we have a page for Plymouth, and we already have like maybe 15 or so public properties. Even Plymouth Patuxent is on there. Rye Tavern has a beautiful pollinator garden. So you can go on there, read about these different gardens, the different native plants. We just installed a collaborative one at Crawley Preserve, which is at 331 Billington Street. We collaborated with the town of Plymouth on this, which was so fun, and it's already like popping. It looks great.
Oh my gosh.
And then the fourth group is the one I mentioned, that Water Quality in Plymouth Ponds Network group, which has the hydrogeologists and all sorts of experts, and they work with the town, and they're trying to like connect people and work on water quality testing and promote the notices that come out, and work on education and things like that with water quality.
Amazing. Oh my gosh. Andrea Dickinson, I can't thank you enough for coming on our little show. And I also can't thank you enough for everything that you guys do. I mean, listeners, go to the website, sustainableplymouth.org. You're going to be amazed. That's everything that's on there. And all of the volunteers that are working with Sustainable Plymouth or the town to help preserve our natural resources. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. I would like to thank our podcast team of Indivisible Plymouth. Heidi Mayo, Phoebe Flynn, Joanne Oscar, Shelley Rowell, Lynn Lufkin, Joe Brennan, and Sandy Cormier. And I want to thank the local scene for producing our show. The local scene is absolutely awesome and amazing. And you can learn more about them, or if you feel so moved to donate to them at thelocalscene.media. That's thelocalscene, SEEN.media. And you can also donate to Sustainable Plymouth through their website, right?
Yes.
Andrea?
Yep.
Okay. Indivisibleplymouth.org is our website if you want to learn more, or if you, again, feel moved to give us any money that we can continue to promote our mission. And we also take donations of stamps. We do have a big postcarding campaign. Indivisible Plymouth, we take positive, effective action in support of democracy and human rights, and we're motivated by love, not hate, to push the moral arc of history. So again, thank you so much, Andrea Dickinson, for coming on. I would love to have you back again. If you can find a little bit of time in everything that you do, again, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I'd be happy to come back anytime.